morning, and welcome to episode 4 of Morning Coffee with Rob. I'm super excited that you're all here to join me. Um, Whether you are or not right at this point, the videos will be up for quite a while, so I hope you come and enjoy at some point if you're not here to enjoy right now. I know I'm kind of behind on a few things, and that I'm trying to get better. It's still kind of like a new thing for me to try and do all these podcasts and live videos and things, and I'm doing them twice a week because I don't want to put too much stress on me to do it. But apparently, I'm not putting quite enough on to make it so I have things more prepared. So I am going to be working harder on that to make sure things are moving along a lot better and a lot more smoothly, whatever the word would be. So that way things are showing up a lot more frequently and people can see more of what's happening because I would like to be able to have this out a lot more. I've also promised that I would have videos out onto YouTube, and I am in the editing process to do so, and I am also working on editing it to work for just your ears as well. So we're going to have it out into a few different places shortly, hopefully. It's just taking a little bit of extra work and kind of got a lot on my plate. So it's going to get there. So I'm not too concerned. Thank you for bearing with me through it all, though. I really appreciate it, and I really think you guys are great. That being said, I was actually just looking through some good new stuff over on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter at Eldorado, you can actually see some of the stuff that you can actually find some on my list that I have available. And one of them is called Good News. Because why don't we need some good news in our lives, right? Might as well have some positivity with all the negative news that's out there. It's interesting because I've seen something that has a Good News magazine available as well that you can subscribe to. I just can't remember who it was through, so I'm not going to talk too much about that guy. But one of them I seen was a woman from Pakistan grew out her hair for 17 years. It's a lot of hair, I'm sure, 17 years of it if it's never been cut. And then donated it to kids in need. Her donation was so large that it set a world record for most hair donated by an individual at 5 feet and 1 inch. That is a whole lot of hair. That's a lot of hair. I haven't had hair like that in quite a while. And even then, my hair wasn't ever that long. Like, I think the longest my hair got to was maybe 2.5 feet, maybe. I had like this really long hair, went down to the small of my back when I was in my teens. It was primo cool. Back in the day, nice surfer do, or grunge do, however you want to really look at it. It was pretty awesome though. But yeah, I just thought we'd start off with that because that's a really great news subject. She donated all this hair. I'm not opening up the article right at the moment, so I'm guessing it's probably for like kids who are going through chemo treatments, which is really sweet. And that's a long tail donation in the end. I don't know if she set out to do it that way, but that's ended up what happened. So that's awesome on her. That's really sweet. Which probably leads us a little bit more into our subject today of personal responsibility. I've already talked about some of the personal responsibility I have this morning, which is to make this podcast better, get it out there to more people a lot more frequently, a lot more easily, and try to set things up where I have stuff in place already. This one was kind of spur of the moment, on a whim kind of idea with personal responsibilities. So if I go short, go long, kind of stumble around, or get off topic, that will be why, because I didn't take the responsible thing and plan stuff out further in advance. Even though I've given myself 2 weeks between each of these episodes, I still am not taking the responsible effort and making it work out a lot better for myself, which is too bad. So I'm throwing things together at the last minute. I used to dub myself the king of wing because I used to just wing literally everything. I've gotten a lot better with not winging everything, so I've got things more put into place, more things put in, so I have a little bit more structure. It's not quite enough structure yet, obviously, because I'm still winging a lot of different things. I'm working on marketing plans so I can get out and market myself a lot better. So I'm trying to take more personal responsibility over the business and practice that I'm trying to create that would also incorporate this broadcast as well. Some of the other things I'm trying to do is just be smarter and try to work on things that need to be worked on. Honestly, like, so one of the things I've really noticed myself, I don't know if anyone else has, this is just an observation for me, is that personal responsibility for a lot of people seems to have gone completely out the window. I don't know if anyone else sees it, but just not for everybody, not everywhere. It's just something that I have noticed, is that that subject has gone right out the window. People don't seem to want to take as much in the way of responsibility for themselves or for their lives so much anymore. They want to be able to pass it off to others, make somebody else responsible for what's going on, make somebody else the cause of their issues. And that's not fair to other people or to themselves, even. Like, honestly, like, it's definitely not fair to themselves. And now I'm not saying that they should be taking responsibility over everything, but there are definitely things that they should be taking responsibility for. There are things in their lives that they should be taking responsibility for that are in control of, that they're in control of. There are things in life that obviously you're not in control of. An example is if you're driving along the highway and you're in a car accident and you've done everything right, you've been driving the speed limit, you've stayed in your lane, you've used all your indicators and all the things and looked in all your mirrors, and you're doing everything as best you can, and you are still in an accident, somebody else has caused it. Obviously, you cannot take responsibility for that. They need to be taking responsibility for their actions that have caused this accident, right? Just as my view, anyhow, that's how that should really technically work, because it's outside of your control, but it was within their control to drive more responsibly. But being that we've been taught not to take responsibility in those kinds of things, nobody ends up taking responsibility, even though the person who probably didn't use their indicator to make that turn or to move into the lane, they should really be taking more responsibility on that. Just like I said, a personal view again. But there's times when people really need to take a lot more responsibility for themselves. Like, they should be taking more responsibility for their finances, their health, their children, their careers, just stuff like that, right? I've tried to take more responsibility specifically over my health so I can be around a whole lot longer for my kids. So that way I can take a little bit more responsibility for them, especially my youngest, which, if you're new to the show or new to listening to me, seeing me, hearing me, talking with me, my youngest son's autistic. He's what they've dubbed as a low functioning, non-verbal autistic child, which will basically progress a lot into his adulthood as well. Now, being nonverbal, he actually does have quite a plethora of words he can use to communicate. Most of it is just parroting things back, which is fine. But I have that extra responsibility to be there for him, so I have to work on me and my health to make sure that I'm around to keep responsible for him. That's my responsibility in my life, is being responsible for me, my kids, my health. One spot that I've just neglected a lot of times, it is been my health until in the last 15 years, I want to say, maybe a little bit more, where I've started to try to take a lot more control over it. And then, as bad as it is to say, I was really good with it, and I don't know what happened, but I don't take as much responsibility over my financial situation as I should have. And that's changed as well. I'm taking a lot more responsibility over that, working hard to make sure I keep everything tight and collected, because once again, for the future of me and future of my kids, I need to do something to make it work better. It's like a choose your own adventure. It eventually, you either get to the end of the book or get 5 pages in and have to restart to get the rest of the story, or to get the better story, right? Because after you end in 5 pages, that might not have been the good story. That's obviously the dead end story. And nobody wants to be in the dead end story. Nobody. Everyone wants to have the good story. Everyone wants to have the happy ending story. The problem that I see is people don't take responsibility to make that happen. They pass the buck to others. They expect the government to step in and help. And the government does typically do a pretty good job stepping in and helping people out when they need to. The government doesn't need to help everybody. They're there to maintain law and order, basically, and make sure society functions. They don't need to take full responsibility over your life. Nobody should want that, in all honesty. They should want the government to step in when you need them to help you out as you take the responsibility actions to get you into a spot where you don't need them anymore. When I see people complaining about how the government isn't doing things for them, it's just like, true, but you need to step up. You need to take control of that part of your life. You can't rely on other people to do that part for you. You need to step up. You need to, if you lost your job, you need to, maybe go on to employment assistance for a little bit to find another job. That's responsible. You take that little bit of money so that way you can maintain your life to feed your family as you find another job, whether it's in the same field or you find things to help you get retrained. There's all kinds of things out there that try and help you out. Now, I'm not trying to be a jerk about the whole thing. I know some circumstances are really beyond people's control, and I get that. I really do. Like, I have friends and family that can't work anymore because of disabilities, and that's not their fault. They were in an accident or something happened where it's now prevented them from doing things. But that's not to say that they shouldn't be taking some kind of responsibility over their lives to try to make them better. Just because you can't go to work, and everyone, for whatever reason, work still is viewed as like a physical labor kind of job, and that doesn't have to be the case. You could do an office job. You can find ones that you don't even have to go to an office. You could do a lot of it from home, so that way you can work the hours that you can work. So if you have like some kind of issue where you can't sit for too long, then you can get up and move around. Finding people that are pretty accommodating has become, now that we've had this pandemic, has become a little bit easier. Not in every case. There are still some people who push back and really want the old way of working from offices and stuff, but there are some companies who have become a lot more progressive and are willing to let people work from home and let people work the schedules that work for them and be able to do what needs to be done for themselves, which is fantastic, because there are some people who just can't sit in an office for hours and hours at a time and have to do things from home. Like, I wish I could work from home a little bit more myself too, for the normal job that I do have. But that's okay, because I don't mind going to the office. I like the social aspect of it as well. Just more of a parental thing that it would be kind of handy. That's all. That's where my responsibility comes in, because I don't want to keep having to go to an office and rely on that to be my sole source of income. So I'm working on some other stuff and taking a lot more responsibility over my cash flow and income, so that way I can provide better and have a little bit more coming in, and then eventually transition into what I want to actually do, because that's where my heart truly lies. That's where my passion is helping people and trying to get people to move forward and understand where they're going. Honestly, I'm working on starting a life coaching practice. This is why we're talking about personal responsibility, because that falls right into it. And I'm starting it in my area right now because it's something that I wish I had between like the ages of 27 and now. I had nobody else to turn to. I had my family to turn to. And as much as they gave me great advice, it might not have always been the best advice or the correct advice for what I needed. They didn't necessarily delve as deep as they could have to help me, where I want to be able to help people find where they're wanting to go and help them get there and guide them and teach them and coach them along the way. I want to be that person that I wanted when I was 27 to now, to try and help me out. Not that I'm expecting people to be from 27 to now with me at 43, but I'm hoping to be able to help people between 27 and like 43 to get to where they want and figure out a little bit more, because people are stuck. Let's face it. Like, people are trying to move on in life and get somewhere where they want to be, but they're very much stuck at where they are. And whether they've figured that out or not, the responsible thing for them is to talk to somebody to try to figure that out and get somewhere going, get moving forward. So one of the books I actually want to recommend right at this moment, since we're here, my super cool bookshelf and all, is this one from Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. It's called Extreme Ownership. Very good book. I love this book. I've read it. Well, I've read it once now, and I do have it on my reading list to read again. It's just been a book that's actually changed how I view a lot of things and stuff that I need to take responsibility over. And they talk about taking responsibility over every aspect of your life and taking extreme ownership. Even if you're in a leadership position, they're talking about taking extreme ownership over everything. Whether your people have made an error, you take ownership of that. Whether you've made an error, you take ownership of that. Depending on your leader and the error that would happen, you can still take ownership of it. You don't want to take ownership if they blatantly screwed up. But if you got the order and you messed it up, then that's still on you, right? So they're trying to exude this idea of extreme ownership where you just own everything that's happened. Once again, obviously within reason, because there are some things that just are outside of your control. And this is ludicrous to try and think you should be taking ownership of that. But that's definitely a book I highly recommend, is Extreme Ownership. It will definitely get you to that spot where you want to be, where you are taking more ownership. And honestly, taking some of this ownership over your life will make you happier. Like, honestly, just taking that time and just like realizing, hey, I've done this. I've messed this up. Let's move forward. Let's fix it. Let's figure it out. It makes it better, honestly. Like, it's better for you to do it. It's healthier. It's calmer. It definitely lightens you up a lot more because it's not placing the burden on someone else. You're not playing. Don't want to use this word because it's a harsh word to have to use in this kind of instance, because some people just are in a spot, but it makes you not the victim anymore. It keeps the victim card away, which is where I think some people get stuck and they see themselves as the victim. And so they push the responsibility of their lives onto other people. Instead of taking that responsibility themselves. Now, I'm not saying that people who have been victimized aren't in need. They are. And hopefully they're taking responsible actions and trying to get the help that they do need in those instances, which I believe most of them are. There will be those subsets that aren't, which is true in life. Like, most people want to take responsibility for their lives. There's just going to be some that aren't, or probably more commonly is we take responsibility in certain sections and then not in other sections, right? Makes a little bit more sense. We take some responsibility here, but not responsibility over here. It's just kind of maybe balancing it out a little bit. I'm not too sure. I know I've taken responsibility for my kids, my house, my dog, but I haven't taken responsibility as well for like my health and a few other things. So that's something I've been trying to work on more. But you can't just make huge life-altering changes to do this either. You got to do kind of baby steps, right? It's what needs to happen. There's actually another really great book on kind of like this as well. Here we go. Once again, back to the library. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Another really good book. Another one that's really helped me quite a bit to understand where I am and how to go forward as well. The idea behind here is it's just small steps every day that you can take to get to where you want to be. Just one small step, setting out a goal, breaking it into steps, and then just one small step every day, and just increasing those steps as you go until you get whatever goal that you are looking for. So that's another book I recommend, is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. There is another one that's very similar that people might like as well. I don't have it on my bookshelf, unfortunately. It is called The Slight Edge Effect, or The Slight Edge. I think it's just The Slight Edge. Well, let me take a look because I do have it on my Kindle. So The slight edge is the same idea, just a little bit different way of telling you how to take those small steps, and a little bit more in the way of it basically just explains it in a little bit of a different manner, which is not a bad thing. It's just whatever happens to work for you. Yeah, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. That's another really good book as well. Like I said, they basically talk about the same things. They just explain it in two different fashions. I read The Slight Edge first and then The Compound Effect. And I like both of them. So either one is good to read. I just have Slight Edge on my Kindle and Compound Effect as an actual physical book. And I think, like I said, they both explain things a little bit differently, but the same concept. And I really like the idea of taking one small idea and just adding on to it, taking one small step and then just building and building and building and building until you get up to where you are, because you're doing it anyway. You might as well just put it into the correct, up to the correct trajectory instead of the downward slope. So if you find anything on the Slight Edge, which I'll try to find stuff and post it up onto Twitter, you'll be able to see kind of how the Slight Edge or Compound Effect work. And it's, like I said, a really cool concept. I really like both books, and I think they really helped me out quite a bit there as well. So Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willemick and Leif Babin, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. So the last two books are the same idea, just explained differently. And I really recommend them to help people move forward and take more responsibility over what's going on, because it's up to you to make a better life. It's not up to anybody else to do so. And I honestly believe that if you start taking more responsibility for who you are and your actions, you'll start being a lot happier and a lot more productive. It just seems to be like a nice hand-in-hand kind of thing, right? I mean, I 100% could be wrong, and you should take everything I say with a grain of salt and maybe check with other people. I don't blame you for any of that, but I really think it's something that makes a lot of sense to me. But like I said, that's me. Yeah. So I am running out of things to say. Like I said, I probably would at the beginning. One of the things I've seen with people who are trying to do a responsible action and trying to bring whatever they feel like to light, whether we agree with it or not, they take this huge amount of responsibility to try to bring us this information, whether we agree with it or not. It's typically considered as disinformation or a conspiracy theory, typically. And when things don't go right, they don't take responsibility over it as well. I don't know if I'm going into this. It doesn't even make sense. So let's skip that, because where I was going with that doesn't even make sense to me. My head was off over here, and it should be over here talking about more tangible things, because where I was heading doesn't even make sense. Like I said, I didn't really plan this one out super well, because I didn't do the responsible thing and write things down or do anything like I have been, or practice or research or do those things. So that's completely on me. That's why I was going into this other area. So we're just going to skip it, because that doesn't even make sense to even talk about, because it just doesn't. Anyway, I think this one might be a little bit shorter. Because I am legitimately running out of things to say. So on kind of a closing note, taking more personal responsibility over your life will bring more happiness to you. If you're not happy somewhere, take responsibility and change it. But don't have to make complete, all-encompassing life changes all at once. Take some small steps and just break them down and work towards them. Find the one big goal and try to fit the other smaller ones into it, and just take one step at a time to be able to reach where you're going. Just take a responsibility over your life, each area of your life, whether it's finance, health, romance, career, family. Like, I think there's two more of them I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's time to start taking responsibility over our lives and taking our lives back. That's really what this is about. It's not even just about being responsible with our lives, it's about taking our lives back. The more responsible we are over our lives and the more ownership we have over what we do and what we say, the better off we'll be, and the more happier we'll be, and the more productive we'll be. Like, our lives will just be infinitely better the more we can take a responsible steps towards our lives and our understanding of where we wanted to move with our lives. So on that note, yeah, I say we should all be taking more responsibility over who we are and not relying on others to be responsible for us, because that doesn't even make sense. Like, why would we let others be responsible for who we are? We are who we are, and nobody else is responsible for us. We are responsible for us. So, are you with me? Let's go out today and start being more responsible adults and people in general to try and make the life we want, which will make the world a better place as well. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me for Morning Coffee with Rob. I know I got off on a little bit of a tangent and lost some thoughts in places. Like I said, I didn't take the responsible thing and plan this one out super well. And I apologize for that. That's totally on me. But I am going to take the responsible thing and ask you to follow me over on Twitter at eldorobbo.com. That's ELDEROBBO. You can also do the same thing over on Instagram, which is the same thing. It's Eldorobbo, ELDEROBBO. You can also join us on our Discord server, which is, if you're on Discord, search for Abundance Brotherhood, and we are there as well. And we'll be more than happy to bring you in, talk to you, have some good times, give some motivation, and just have fun. Good, positive, happy fun. You can also check out my website, which is rob-hicks.com. I write on the blog, and I have a bunch of other fun and cool projects that are up there as well, with other video stuff that I've done, like 15-second thoughts, older morning coffees. I had one that I did that was very short-lived. That was Thursday night thoughts. It's kind of very much similar to this, except I did it every week for about 10 weeks. And then you can also support me over on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Eldorobbo. Again, ELDEROBBO. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. And I promise this time I will be responsible and have something up and ready and much better prepared and planned out for us. And we will see you in 2 weeks, which would make it October 31st. So that's Halloween. So we'll have this nice spooky edition of Morning Coffee with Rob. And I look forward to seeing you all then. All right. You guys all take care. We'll see you in 2 weeks.